Greetings. Thank you for participating in this course. My name is Raluca Dinescu and I am teacher at Faculty of Business and Administration of the University of Bucharest. Today, we will talk about organic agriculture. Government policies aim to promote production and export and implementation of a control system for both exports and imports from or into European Union. Next slide. Research on the subject of organic farming is imperative, and knowledge and understanding of legislation and policies developed in this area are essentials. This course aims to provide knowledge on the monitoring of control activities in this field, as well as on the policies developed at the international level. Next slide. After taking this course, the students will be able to analyze the control structure that legislates the production, processing, dispersion, and imports of organic products at the level of EU member countries. Understand the monitoring activity carried out by the European Commission on the control structures of the member states, the oversights of the control entities by the member states, and the trade of data existing between the different entities and authorities. Now the situation of supporting the production and support of organic products in Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, Africa, Oceania, North America, and Europe. Next slide. Organic production at EU level is influenced by the consumer interest protection, ensuring an unbiased rivalry between producers and facilitating the free circulation of organic produce in the EU. Environmental policies take into account the importance of organic farming in sustainable development and increasing concerns for protecting the environment through the use of agricultural practices that have created the right framework for the advancement of organic farming practices and the resulting products. The consumer of organic produce must have the guarantee of a control system at each stage of the supply chain, regardless of whether the goods are made in the EU or they are made outside the EU. Globally, there are a number of interventions in the form of state measures conceived to support the development of organic agriculture. Next slide. So far, no test or experiment has been standardized to conclude whether a product is organic or not. If a product was subjected to a control and certification system in accordance with the relevant EU standards, it should bear the EU logo. The use of the EU logo indicates that at least 95 of the agricultural ingredients are organic in the case of processed products. Thus, for the safety of these, one of the basic elements is the fact that specific operators at various stages of the supply chain have to set up their own processes for the organic goods, shifting from clean controls to very complicated methods. Next slide. The EU has set up a control scheme. Different control systems are being enforced for the imported products, meaning that the single operators are being verified by particular entities that are main essential features for all ecological control and certification systems. And these controls include checking the accounting documents, physical inspections performed at the production or processing units, and taking samples of finished goods or harvested products, of leaves or of soil fragments, or examination to determine if there were used or not unauthorized substances. In all these systems, the central role is played by the Commission, overseeing both the control system of the member states and the actors involved in the different import regions. Next slide. There has been a rapid growth of the ecological sector in recent years in terms of the agricultural area involved, its market share, and number of operators. The graph provides an overview of the evolution of the value of agricultural areas as well as of the retail sales of organic products from 2000 to 2018. Next slide. People started to have concerns about the impact of the consumed food on their own health, as well as the social and environmental consequences that it entails. The price of the organic products is sometimes significantly higher than the price paid for conventional products. This increases the need to create a robust analytical tool for their authentication. The price difference is influenced both by the differences related to the processing and distribution costs, as well as the demand from the consumers. Reported price premiums vary significantly from one food product to another, and the producers are receiving only a part of these premiums. Next slide. The Commission had not carried out any audit on organic farming in the member states between 2004 and 2018. The Commission restarted its audit visits to the member states following a 2012 European Court of Auditors recommendation. Thus, between 2012 and 2018, the Directorate General for Health and Food Safety conducted 63 audits related to organic farming, and the general conclusion of these audits was, in most member states, that despite the deficiencies identified in the supervision of control bodies and at the level of individual inspection, the control systems were well organized. Next slide. When the EU regulation on organic goods has been breached, the Commission initiated a procedure for failure to fulfill some obligation, sent letters to the concerned member states prior to the finding of non-compliance with the obligations, uses the gatherings of the Committee on Organic Production, composed of representatives of the member states, to discuss these issues, has taken initiatives regarding the coordination with the control bodies and competent authorities, private sector organizations, and anti-fraud authorities, or has encouraged the setting up of such organization. Next slide. From 2012, the member states have started to have documented and proper steps for approving and supervising of the control entities. Following the Special Report Number 9, 2012 of the European Court of Auditors, the member states have strengthened the supervisory role of control bodies. In this way, the oversight of the control structure for organic goods produced in the Union is being enhanced. Next slide. Regulation number 889 2009 has been completed with chapter number 9, through which the European Commission specifies the legal framework for the competent authorities of the member states. For example, are detailed the types of supervisory activities that the competent authorities should carry out with respect to the control bodies, and is set out their obligation to organize an annual inspection at the control bodies. Next slide. The 2012 ECA audit concluded that the competent authorities from the member states should take further action to improve the supervisory activity for the control bodies. For example, improved guidelines and procedures, made changes in the legal framework. The competent authorities have to verify if the control bodies have established risk analysis procedures for the rotation of the designated inspectors and for the inspections they carry out, a better coordination with the accreditation bodies. Next slide. Starting with 2013, the competent authorities have the obligation to adopt a catalogue with nonconformity types and to send it to the control bodies in order to be applied. Next slide. Also, from 2013, the minimum number of samples to be taken and be analyzed by the control body should correspond to a percentage of 5% of the number of operators under the control of that control body. Next slide. From 2018, there is an obligation for the control bodies or competent authorities to carry out an investigation to determine the cause and source of the presence of unauthorized products or substances. In these cases, until the results of the investigations are revealed, they have to temporarily block the products. Next slide. Member states are required to communicate to the paying agencies the results of their own inspections on organic production. This is important as it may affect EU grants to farmers. Thus, most member states currently have cross-notification systems. Next slide. Article number 92 of Regulation number 889/2008 introduced the requirement that the control bodies inform without delay the competent authorities about the cases of non-compliance affecting the ecological status of the products. In this regard, the member states have developed procedures and sometimes technological solutions. Next slide. The European Commission has developed an online tool, Organic Farming Information System, in order to facilitate the transmission of relevant information. With the help of this online tool, communication from the member states has become faster. Key response time has improved, 85% of the answers being sent in a helpful time in 2017. Next slide. Throughout all stages of production, processing and distribution, the General Food Law requires the traceability for the food and animal feeding companies. Lind and Olson identify three categories for gaining and maintaining traceability throughout the supply chain: food safety and quality, managing the supply chain and internal resources, communication with consumers. Next slide. The aim of a traceability check is to verify their ecological certification, to identify the entire chain of operators involved, and to trace the product back to its origin and confine the problem in case of non-compliance with the regulation, preventing the products in question to reach to consumers. Next slide. Control bodies from October 2017 are required to issue electronic inspection certificates accompanying each batch of imported organic products through the online module Trade Control and Expert System. Also, in order to provide more comprehensive statistical data on imports and especially to improve the traceability of organic products, a new model has been introduced. Next. Manufacturers undergo a strict process in order to obtain and market the organic products. The production facility has to go through a conversion period of minimum 2 years before obtaining agricultural goods that can be advertised under the term organic product. During the whole of the chain of obtaining an organic goods, operators must submit their activity to inspection visit carried out by inspection and certification bodies in order to check the compliance with the previous of the legislation in force regarding organic production. Next slide. In Romania, private inspection and certification bodies ensure the control and certification of organic products. Based on the criteria of impartiality, competence, and independence, these private bodies are approved by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. The approval of inspection and certification bodies by the Ministry must be preceded by their accreditation obtained from a body authorized for this purpose. Next slide. After complying with the production rules, the operators will receive the organic goods certificate and will be able to mark their goods with the mention ecological. On the label applied to an organic good must be stated the following: the logos, the reference to organic production, the code, the name of the inspection and certification body that carry out the inspection. Next slide. The products obtained in accordance with organic production rules are marked with the national logo specific to organic products, the community logo. Thus, consumers who buy products bearing the national logo and the community logo can be certain that at least 95% of the ingredients of the good have been made in accordance with the organic production approach and the product respects the organic production standards. Next slide. The insurance of the traceability and the status verification of the products is acknowledged through the transaction certificate issued by the country bodies for each sale of the certified products. Next slide. Between January and August 2019, the control bodies in Romania issued a total number of 3,494 transaction certificates for products marketed or proceed with final destination both EU and non-EU countries. The types of operators who receive the transaction certificates are manufacturers, traders, importers, processors. Next slide. In this graph, it can be seen that most of the transaction certificates were granted by the control bodies in February 2019, namely a number of 505 certificates, with February also highlighting the highest quantity of traded products during the analyzed period. This month, besides Romania as the final destination for 35,661,066 tons of organic products, high quantities were also traded in EU countries such as Italy, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. As well, this month, also Romania was the final destination for the largest quantity of organic products, worth 12,340,056 tons. Next slide. In this graph, it can be seen that the products marketed as raw material during the period January-August 2019 represents 90% of the total of organic products traded for which control were carried out and for which they were granted trading certificates, while the proceed products represents only 10% of the total. Next slide. In this graph, it can be seen the final destinations of the organic products for which checks were carried out by the Romanian control bodies between January and August 2019. Thus, the highest percentage is represented by countries within the EU of 98%, and the remaining 2% from non-EU countries such as the USA and the United Arab Emirates. Of the countries within the EU, except Romania with 48% of the quantities of organic products, two countries such as Italy, Germany, and France were traded the largest quantities of organic products. Next slide. The concerns of organic producers point in two main areas: production, inputs with effects on total yield and production; marketing, product prices, marketing cost, and market availability. In a first stage, farmers had production problems, and their concerns were related to soil, pests, and diseases. At a later stage, when worldwide trade in organic produce increased, the significance of market issues took precedence. Next slide. In some countries, direct aid and other aid models for organic farming have been granted to help grow or use greener practices. Policies to increase domestic consumption in some developed countries would protect organic producers from import of products from exporting countries. These subsidy policies create benefits for a few, like producers and consumers, and difficulties for others, like exporters whose competitive advantage decreases. One solution in establishing more effective government strategies would be to choose between promoting policies that favor domestic producers or regulate the import of organic products, a policy of taxing the use of pesticides and fertilizers in agriculture. Next slide. Raising awareness of the environmental, economic, and social benefits of organic production is also the subject of an environmental policy. In both the production and marketing of organic products, it's also necessary to support research policies. It is also of utmost importance to have policies that identify the restrictions of increasing the stock of organic production and the measures to overcome these restrictions. Investment in research can contribute to the identification and the development of suitable plant varieties, as well as those resistant to disease, to rapid growth in the early stages. Next slide. A valuable support for organic production and certification is the advancement of local guidelines. Less developed countries that depend on worldwide certification to be able to export organic products are more likely to face problems in the authorization process. Governments of advanced states and import promotion organizations could give intelligence on organic standards and regulation, market opportunities, and other factors relevant to exporters in evolving nations. Next slide. Asian nations have taken important steps region-wide to establish a set of actions for the advancement of organic agriculture. The Organic Agriculture Act was adopted in 2010 in the Philippines. Sikkim Organic Mission was created in 2010 in India as a roadmap detailing the requirements needed to accomplish by 2015 the objective of developing organic agriculture. In Asia, the support of the people for organic agriculture is quite new in comparison to the West, Europe. The Organic Agriculture Act was designed to create a structural basis to support the development of this area. An example of action implemented in India is the launching in 2015 of the Paramparagat program, targeting smallholders, and the adoption of the participatory program with guarantee systems. Next slide. The southern countries of the American continent took also political actions focused primarily on the development of organic legislation at a national level. Many of these actions do not form policies, but are rather programs that are seen as a stepping stone in becoming permanent legislation. However, there are exceptions. Brazilian National Policy for Agroecology and Organic Production, or Organic Program for Public Procurement in Public Schools. Next slide. The Cuban agricultural program has started and continues to operate since 1997. The program was created to combat food shortages after the disappearance of the former USSR. This allowed for the advancement of organic agriculture as well as for agroecology in Cuba. Next slide. Most African governments lack the necessary resources to develop organic agriculture. Therefore, this was done mainly through external assistance. The exception is Tunisia, which has seen an overwhelming success in this area, especially in the value of exports after the application of the 1999 law that allowed for considerable public investment in research and the expansion of the sector. Next slide. Oceanian countries, in general, adopted a non-interventional stance regarding agriculture and, as a result, very few pro-organic legislation exists. In the Pacific Islands, there is a political interest in organic farming in communities, and some intriguing programs can be found here. The Pacific Regional Organic Task Force has put together the Pacific Organic Standards. The Pacific High-Level Organic Group was created to contribute with political support at the higher levels and assistance. Organics International Pacific Regional Organic Task Force has been described as a specialized entity speaking for those living in the islands around the Pacific where it is grown organically. Next slide. As a result of the Pacific High-Level Organics Group, the Secretariat of the Pacific Community supported the advancement of the Organic Pacific as well as of the Ethical Trade Community. This network established an organic insurance and labeling framework and in 2013 implemented a regional brand called Organic Pacifica. Next slide. Recently, municipalities and cities started playing a more important role in helping the advancement of the organic sector. In the Philippines, for example, the League of Municipalities and Cities Involved in Organic Agriculture, which was conceived in 2012, demonstrates an example of integrated urban management and aims to integrate organic farming at the municipal and urban level. The National Council for Organic Agriculture consults the League when formulating and implementing organic farming policies. Next slide. The US is characterized in general by an inferior level of market interventionism. The Farm Act 2014 provisions on organic programs cover a wide range of objectives. Another valuable achievement for the American organic sector was the 2014 U.S. Farm Bill. The health measures for the most part target research, insurance plans, and limited coverage of certification costs. Among the objectives covered by Farm Act 2014, we mention assistance with the cost of organic certification, expanding organic research and data collection, improving technical assistance and crop insurance, strengthening the application of organic regulation, and expanding market opportunities for producers. The 2014 U.S. Farm Bill expanded financing for the National Organic Program and enhanced the security plan for organic farms. Next slide. In Canada, the region of Quebec was the first one where the government provided help for the organic subdivision. It is worth mentioning that the EU and US governments have always had a different approach regarding the policies on environmental protection, agriculture, and by extension, organic farming. Next slide. Europe, and more precisely, the EU, is leading in terms of public help for organic farming. State help regarding organic agriculture starting during the end of the 1980s. Different fields such as research and development, market evolution, and end-user advocacy are getting to this day central help for organic agriculture. Next slide. Research has identified two contrasting ranges of policy advancement at European level. 1. Development of tools to support organic agriculture in the Union junction as well as impact at homestead level. 2. Involvement of stakeholders and institutions in the development of policies and factors influencing Europe's agricultural policy networks. Next slide. In the Czech Republic, organic agricultural legislation is primarily promoted by the state through the central power and the main organic agriculture entities. In contrast, Poland has several actors who lack coordination, as there is no clear architecture. Therefore, this domain is able to counterbalance the standardized power of the government. Organic farming policy is governed by the state, while the organic subdivision does not have sufficient assets to participate adequately in the policy-making mechanism. As a result, organic farming organizations are finding it difficult to be heard and to establish a clear position on the government's policy. Next slide. Organic manufacturing, labeling as well as authorization started to acquire legal status from the central authorities from the early 1990s, followed by the issuing of Council Regulation number 2022-1991. Such legislation can be interpreted as at least amount of rules, while much authoritarian ones can be set by private farmers' association. Next slide. There are also several European regulations. Regulation number 834/2007 of the Council, Commission Regulation 889/2008 and 1235/2008 accompany Council Regulation 834/2007. An EU regulation adopted in 2017 is expected to enter into force in 2021. Regulation number 834/2007 of the Council lays down the general objectives and principles of organic production, defining the basic rules for the organic production of crops, animals, aquaculture, and seaweed, and the processing of food and feed, and includes criteria for the use of certain products and substances, control and inspection of the supply chain, and rules of trade with third countries. This regulation laid down detailed implementing rules governing the production, processing, packaging, transport, storage, labeling, and control, and imports. The regulation adopted in 2017 took over many of the recommendations of the green sector. We repeal the current regulation. Next slide. The Organic Campaign has set the basis and guidelines of organic farming through IFOAM rules, and at national level through independent organic sets of rules. Next slide. Through Transforming Food and Agriculture, an ecological vision for Europe in 2030, the ecological movement strives to enable better adoption of absolutely attainable food and agricultural systems. 2030 vision was integrated by the document Transforming the Agricultural Sector and the Food Industry, a Reality, a map of the ecological sector for sustainable food and agriculture systems in Europe, that was published in 2017. Next slide. 2030 vision provides essential tips for achieving the vision based on 3 topics: organic products in every household, improve, inspire, deliver, fair work, fair payment. Next slide. The EU policy framework to help the growth of the green sector consists of 4 main areas, as can be seen in the figure below. Next slide. European Green Action Plans produce a structure for assimilating legislation and actions to stimulate the growth of the green sector. are used as crucial tools for states and the green sector as a whole to accomplish policy objectives, can aid to create alliance and avert conflicting policies while ensuring that different measures are complementary, allow for better approach to specific bottlenecks, and allow for different entities with vested interest to be involved in legislation preparation. Green measures can be put into action at contrasting stages of governance, from the European level to statewide and local action plans. Strategies are usually coordinated by states, line ministries, but can also be initiated by business and central facility. Next slide. Several European countries, including the Kingdom of Belgium, the German Confederation, the Spanish Kingdom, the Swiss Confederation, as well as the United Kingdom, have created regional strategies. Such strategies are present only at the local level in the Kingdom of Belgium, the Swiss Confederation, and the United Kingdom, while in the German Confederation, as well as in the Spanish Kingdom, you can find both local and statewide green measures. Next slide. Similar to statewide plans, local green strategies contain a number of actions, such as action focused on manufacturing, retailing, research, science, and know-how exchange. The advancement of strategies at the local level most generally mirrors the fact that accountability and capability for food, agriculture, and rural advancement belong to regional or provincial governments in definite countries of Europe. Next slide. Environmental action plans meet the objectives of government policy and the status quo, the development of the green sector in every region or country, which could be altogether dissimilar. Consequently, the revised action plans vary in terms of the development process, objectives, and focus of the benchmark on assertive files. Thank you for your attention.